Hello. Okay. I don't. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome. Excuse me. Welcome to the Breaking the Internet podcast. For those that are new here, or everyone's gonna. Oh my God. Okay. Restart. Yeah, that's a horrible intro. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Breaking the Internet podcast. I'm Allie at Ending with Allie. Everyone, sorry, I've had too much coffee today and not enough sleep. I'm
No,
going to
it's
try
good.
one more
I mean,
time.
we have to set this off right. I feel like
Yeah.
this is what people should expect, right?
Yeah. I,
We're not here for perfection. Like, we're here to say things.
I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep and a lot of anxiety right now. And if the viewer, I don't know if we're going to keep this in or not, but for the people who are listening or watching at home, I have had a week. But let's try this again. Hi, welcome to the first episode of the Breaking the Internet podcast. I'm Allie. I'm at Ending with Allie on everything, including Minecraft. And we also have with me.
She Networks. Yes, I am Serena, but most people know me from my content creation under She Networks. And yeah, we're here to talk about tech, really. And I am excited.
Yeah. So I feel like when people start something new, they always do that first episode where they're like, so this is going to be about X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. No, not here. Really quick rundown. This is a podcast for people who are in the industry already. If you're not in the industry and you want to listen, that's fine too. But we're going to talk about stuff that's going on in the industry. We're going to give you our thoughts, our opinions. We're bringing some life back into tech. We're bringing personality, I guess, our personality. And we're going to talk about whatever we want because that's a situation. Serena literally reached out to me and she was like, do you want to do a podcast with me? And I was like, yes, thank you so much for asking me. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever done. So this is it. That's the TLDR that you get. And we'll see how it goes.
Right. Yeah. I think the reason that I asked you to do it with me is one, I like your personality and feel like you were just going to kill it. And number two, I feel like we would be aligned on the vision of what we want with this. And it is not just the typical, like, we're going to interview people. And that might happen. I mean, we're not taking it off the table, but we're really just talking about lifestyle in the industry and how it's changing and big events that are happening or unfolding and just kind of having those conversations where it's not incredibly technical deep dives but talking about like the people side of working in tech.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I think it's going to be great.
Absolutely. I'm excited to do this. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while, and also as like a secret, we're also doing this because we want to hold ourselves both accountable to make more content on a regular basis.
Yes, exactly. Which is great though, because I feel like I already have so many ideas to
Yeah.
go for, and I love that. My background, just for people who are listening, in case they are new to this podcast or us, maybe they're listening to it a while from now or whatever. But my background is network engineering, but recently, a couple years ago, I switched to cybersecurity. I do a lot of offensive network security, and Allie has a little bit of a different background, so I thought it'd be kind of like a nice blend for that as well.
Yeah, I am a full-time software engineer. I did developer relations for 5 years. I've had a short stint as a founder, but yeah, I come from the developer and coding aspect of the tech industry. So we're really like, I feel like we're spanning everything at this point between the two of us. And I'm also a content creator. I live stream on Twitch. I also do cybersecurity on the side. It's like people are like, "Oh, Allie's works in cybersecurity. Like she's a hacker," and I'm like, "No, I'm hacker adjacent. Please, I don't know what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
please don't look at me. Like cybersecurity is my hobby. I do
Yeah.
Threatwire. I report the news."
It's funny when they'll be like, "Oh, you're in cybersecurity," but then like some people outside of tech just like assume everyone's a software developer. So I have like the opposite where everyone just assumes I'm a software developer. I'm like, that's not it. I don't know if you remember, I had this tweet that popped off and it went viral and it was really not, it was like very overwhelming. I had like men going and like finding my GitHub page and being like, she's definitely a diversity hire because look, like her GitHub page, which one? They found the one that's associated with my content. Like I just post like code related to my content. And also like I'm not a software developer. I do a lot of like Python scripts and stuff. A lot of it's just like automation stuff to help me at work on tests to make things more efficient. But I was like, y'all, like I don't work on software. Like that's not what I do. And so that's just the funny like opposite ends of the spectrum where like some people it's like everybody is cybersecurity or like everyone's a developer.
I feel like this is like a really great way to jump into our first topic, and especially talking about the DE and I situation and kind of where it's going, because I was looking up as you were talking the email, and this is an old thing. I actually didn't read the whole thing. I only really skimmed it. But Alexander Wang, not the designer, but the founder of Scale AI, posted this tweet that was like, we're formalized. So it says, today we formalize an important hiring policy at Scale. We hire for MEI, merit, excellence, and intelligence. This is the email we shared with our Scale AI team. Blah, blah, blah. That's why it's time to codify a hiring principle that I consider crucial to our success. Scale is a meritocracy, and we must always remain one. And the vibes that the replies all said is like, it got really mixed results, but all of the comments that I'm just looking at right now are all just, good job, bro. And it's all men. And it's all men.
I know.
And I don't want to start the podcast off being like, we hate men. But
No. Yeah, no.
yeah.
I think what my problem is because whenever you're like critical of like this whole like meritocracy concept, people are like, well, what's wrong with meritocracy? Like, why can't it be meritocracy? And I was like, because the thing that you're actually describing is not that. You know what I mean? And I was like, it's never been that in the fields because one, there's nepotism, which maybe is a small fraction. Two, aside from nepotism, there's like so many other areas aside from like just hardcore technical work that are required and necessary to be the best, right? And I feel like a lot of these conversations don't include things like soft skills or, you know, just like emotional intelligence or things like that. It's like, oh, we're going to purely look at the technical portions, which is great, but you are going to be sacrificing potentially in other areas. And not only that, like back to like the whole meritocracy thing, most of the jobs that I've gotten have been from like networking and connecting with other people. And I think that's how a lot of people in the industry kind of work, right? Where it's like, oh, we're going to you know, find someone who works in another company, and having like an employee referral has a lot of weight on it because it's like, okay,
So
this
much weight.
person already is basically vouching for this other person that if I want to spend 40 hours a week with this person, then, you know, they're good. Because that's the big thing too. It's like you are spending so much time with these people that you're working with that you really need like a well-rounded person. And I feel like a lot of that stuff isn't accounted for when we're talking about like a meritocracy or just basically saying that that has ever existed, because it hasn't ever existed.
I mean, also right now more than ever, it's like people are fighting for their lives to get jobs in general in tech. And I mean, the one of the lines from this manifesto, I've been using the word manifesto a lot this week, that stuck out is, there is a mistaken belief that meritocracy somehow conflicts with diversity. I strongly disagree. No group has a monopoly on excellence. But let's just be real. I would love Alexander Wang to come out and tell me how many of his employees have been hired through referrals.
Yeah.
I think that is like I think companies should like start being like, okay, we're hiring for excellence, but also this is how many people that have been hired from referrals.
Right.
If you're gonna publish this, come with numbers.
Yeah.
Come with numbers. Let's talk about it. Because if you're hiring for the best, I bet not every referral is going to be the best.
Right.
Those are people who probably got along well with the people that were being referred in.
Yeah. Or, you know, again, like a lot of referrals are like people I've met at college, people who are in my social circle. And if you don't have diversity in that, you're not going to have diversity in your workforce. I think that's kind of like an important note, but like you said, like everyone right now is just like the whole job market, which is really the theme of this episode, is like a dumpster fire. And
Oh
I
my
think
God.
there's like a lot of interesting complexities associated with the current market. But before I want to get to that, I wanted to make one note, and is like, what is with these startup founders basically writing these manifestos like all the time? Who was it? Was it the Ruby on Rails guy?
DHH!
Yeah, where he, made this whole thing about politics and this stuff, and I was like, y'all are really like, I it's weird when you mix like these influencer founders and they're just like pushing stuff out there and publishing things that like nobody asked for.
So this is okay, so I'll explain to you the situation.
Okay.
So basically, as a way of getting, and this is we're tapping into the DevRel era, as a
Okay.
way of getting customers, basically. And here's a little tactic: if you're a startup founder, you pick a problem and you go balls to the wall on it. Like you are like, this is my whole personality, this is my identity, and I'm going to go on every podcast, I'm going to go on every stage, I'm going to talk about this thing, let everyone know that they're doing it wrong, or this is the best way to do it, or like, and sorry, I keep pushing up my glasses. They're cute, but I need to get them adjusted so they don't
Mine
fly
are
to my
like
nose.
that too, so I get you.
But like essentially like a way of selling a product and getting new users, especially in the SaaS space, is to have these manifestos that they points of just like, I'm going to drill this in and make this my entire personality, so people know that when they want to solve that issue, they come to me.
Yeah.
And that is now the marketing tactic. Like the days of selling to companies through business meetings and conferences, and just, I mean, I don't even know how they did it back then. Going to events and just meeting people is kind of dead. It's now all about networking online and social media and
Leadership.
thought leadership. Thought leadership. It's the thought leadership of it all is how you get customers. And you see so many founders try to do that. And there are people who do focus specifically on helping founders grow to become influencers in a way and become these thought leaders, so that then they can sell their product. And I know there's like a couple of YouTubers that focus on that, a couple of like consultants that focus on that, like helping them make content, come up with content ideas, running the content mill,
It's
so that they
interesting
can
that marketing is now geared
standard.
toward a person instead of the product or like the thing that
Yeah.
they're trying to solve. Okay, what does this like culture war stuff have to do with like your product? You know what I mean? Like, or what issue is
Virtue
really trying to be solved here, essentially?
virtue signaling for VCs.
I guess
I
it's
mean,
just bizarre to me, right? Like I think like it's bizarre to me in a way to position yourself as like, for me, I try to be like the face of me, but like a lot of these people are like the face of their company, right? And like that's their driving force. It seems like they're spending a lot of time on things that is not meaningful, if that makes sense.
it works in the beginning. I'll put it out there. It really does work in the beginning as a really great way to market, because how do you get customers? You have to kind of go do the marketing yourself, whether that's on your Twitter, doing blog posts on your social media, going on podcasts, giving conference talks. Like that's how you get customers. But at some point, what ends up happening is that the CEO becomes too intertwined with the branding of the company, that the company can no longer stand on its own 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this with other companies where the CEO basically, instead of letting the company kind of announce things and congratulate employees, it's the CEO who's sharing all the news about the company. And, at that point, the company, I think, is what, like a Series C company.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still using the CEO as a mouthpiece, which is fine. But at that point, you have like a social media team, and you have people who are trying to like grow your social presence. And if you're not stepping down and becoming your own individual entity again, if you as a CEO want to leave, which I know the CEO did not leave, but they stepped down as CEO, like they're too conflated with the branding. And at some point, CEOs need to like
Right.
know when to step down and stop doing that. And it is super effective in the beginning. It's very effective. But I'll say this, it's not necessarily the playbook for every company and for who the company is selling for.
Yeah.
The traditional route is totally a reasonable way to, like, depending on your market. If your market is other startups, not necessarily Fortune 100, like, I should say this, if your market is like Fortune 100 or military or like suits, essentially, being a thought leader in the industry like this is not going to be helpful for selling to your target market.
Yeah.
But if your target market is not that, then hell yeah, go ahead. Like,
Right.
conflate yourself in a way. But like, if you're selling to suits, and obviously suits do want to see trendy, cool new things. They think it's awesome to have new cutting edge technology, but you kind of have to know how to balance these things. And I might be totally wrong. Like, this is just my observations and I'm not a business major in any way. I'm not a marketing major in any way. I don't know what I did to get to where I am today, but I do pull a lot of my entrepreneurial thoughts and kind of selling points from my family, because I do come from a line of entrepreneurs and engineers. So I kind of get those selling points, and it feels almost like knowing these sort of things feels like a cheat code.
All this kind of reminded me. Have you seen the documentary about, gosh, it was like that trivia app?
No, I didn't see it. HQ something.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes. I had watched
HQ. It was literally called HQ.
Okay. So I was watching that documentary a while ago, like probably when it first came out, and a big portion of it focused on the founders and how the founders would be jealous about not being like the face of the brand because they had hired this one guy to be the host of this trivia app, and he became kind of associated with the app, obviously, and I think that rubbed the founders the wrong way a little bit too, because it's like part of this, like, I built this, it almost maybe to them feels like someone else is getting credit for their work and like their genius. And you're like, oh, this thing's so popular and it wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for me, while simultaneously kind of discrediting the work that host did to also make it really popular as well.
It's okay, and this I feel like this is a whole topic for another
Right. Yeah.
podcast story. Is founders for, like, can we just write this down? Founders for the sake of being founders, because I have a lot of thoughts and opinions.
Oh, that would be a
I have a
great
lot of thoughts and opinions of founders for the sake of being founders, and how that's changed the market and how that's affected the field. And I could talk about this for hours.
Oh yeah. I could
Hours. I mean, the question is, should we get into it or should we pause the convo and get back? Because I will.
Yeah.
I can.
All right, let's table this discussion.
We're going to table this discussion. And if you want to hear us talk about this more, because I have so many thoughts and opinions, and I know that if we talk, I want to make sure that we answer, because you put an Ask FM out, and I want to know what was put in there.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want people to be like, Allie's stopping the conversation, because like there's so much to talk about this. But I have so many thoughts and opinions about this, and I could talk about this forever, because I have so many viewpoints on this. Sorry.
Yeah, let's do
I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
so.
Let's do another episode just on that, because I think we could really.
Yes, if people, that's what I wanted to say. If people want us to talk about this and they have questions about our opinions, they should let us know. Like, DM us or tweet at us, or we're gonna have a Twitter. I have to finish fixing the name, because for some reason Elongated Muskrat is not letting me change the handle. So once I get the handle fixed, like I'll tweet on the account, and we can both retweet it, and blah blah blah, whatever, people can reply. Are 0-day exploits and supply chain attacks keeping you up at night? You're not alone, and there's a solution that might help. ThreatLocker.
Think of ThreatLocker as your proactive security partner. Instead of waiting for threats to appear, it works on a deny by default principle, meaning it blocks everything unless your team specifically approves it. This way, you can be sure that every action, process, and user is tightly controlled. Plus, ThreatLocker provides a complete audit trail of what's been allowed or blocked, which is great for managing risk and staying compliant.
One standout feature is ring fencing, which prevents applications from becoming weaponized by restricting how they interact with each other. This ensures that even if a threat tries to exploit an application, it can't affect other parts of your system.
Their US-based support team is here to help you every step of the way, from getting started to keeping things running smoothly. By using ThreatLocker, you can protect your organization from ransomware and ensure that your trusted applications remain secure and efficient.
Companies like JetBlue already rely on ThreatLocker to keep their data safe and their operations running smoothly. If you want to learn more about how ThreatLocker can safeguard your organization and ensure compliance, check out threatlocker.com. That's threatlocker.com.
All right. So, the topic that we're really diving into is the job market. We're going to answer the FM questions at the end, but let's just kind of talk about tech layoffs, because that for last year and this year has been such the topic of tech layoffs. Is tech still a good industry to be in? Is there still opportunities there? And why are all these layoffs happening? I do have a TechCrunch, I guess it's their layoff tracker on their website. They have been tracking tech layoffs, US companies that cut jobs in 2022, 2023, and 2024. So they have just kind of like a clear list here of companies that have. Now, I want to preface this with saying that tech layoffs happen every single year. And a lot of large companies also do layoffs every single year. So there's constant layoffs. The difference, though, is the size of these layoffs and the amount of companies that are participating in them. So, like, you know, if you're laying off 1% of your workforce, that's still 99% of jobs, of people who haven't lost their jobs, right? So when it comes to like, do I think tech is still a good career field to get into? I would say like absolutely yes. Because even at 10%, it's like, well, 90% of people at those companies like still have kept their jobs, right? How do you feel about that?
Okay, so I have feelings, I have opinions, I have thoughts, but in like the thoughty kind of way. Okay, so did you watch my last YouTube video? Not the second to last YouTube video. I published 2 YouTube videos last week, and I'm like, I am unstoppable. I'm God.
I was on vacation all last week in the woods, so.
Oh, so lucky. Okay, so for those who haven't seen my YouTube video, which please go watch it because, you know, whatever. Give me them views, give me your eyeballs. So I will tell you my hypothesis that no one is really talking about. I'm going to TLDR this, but if you're watching this video and you haven't seen my video, pause, go watch it, come back, and then we continue the conversation. Thank you. We'll still be here, don't worry, but you have to come finish this video too. So what's the situation here? So obviously there's a lot of companies that are doing these layoffs. Why? But also, why is it really difficult to get a job? I mean, one of the reasons companies are not hiring as much is this whole ZIRP thing, zero interest, something. I don't know. I still don't remember what it means. But basically, like, the money isn't as free flowing as it used to be. And I think we can see that now in the VC hype cycle and the VC hype cycle that's occurred. But we can get to that later. But what I think is one of the reasons, and I think that no one's really talking about why I don't think it's a good time to get into tech, is that the number of new hires that are entering the market right now is insane. And so I have this theory that I talk about in this video that essentially the people that are entering the new hire market right now, most of the people who are entering the new hire market, and I don't want people to think I'm discrediting like late stage boot camp or older age boot camp grads, older aged college grads or whatever, but specifically, generally, when the people, like, I don't know the numbers to this, but you could say a large majority of the new workforce, the junior workforce, is people that are graduating education of some sort. And when those people, the people that are graduating education now are they're going to be 22, 23, 24. And if you go back, and I'm summarizing this again, if you go back to when they were first born, the years were 2000, 2001, 2002. Everything that has happened between now and then, how many major U.S. financial crises there have been? How's Y2K starting off? Y2K, the new album by Ice Spice, go listen to it. But also Y2K happened, housing market crashed. There was the 2008 financial crisis, just so many global financial issues that a lot of these people who were born in the early 2000s, their parents probably lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost their livelihoods, lost a lot of money during these times. So when those kids, the most impressionable years of their lives, under 10, they saw their parents just suffer. So then when they were around 12, 13, 14, they saw Facebook blowing up, Instagram blowing up, they saw Snapchat blowing up, Google blowing up, huge companies, Microsoft getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, trading more on these things. And their parents, the 8 years now, 2012, 2013, 2014, the parents are kind of like looking around and saying like, wow, there's money in there. There's a lot of money in there. And then when they're 16, 17, 18, the years like 2016, 2017, 2018, these kids are now being asked, so what do you want to do for college? Like, what do you want to study? What do you want to do for work? And the kids are looking around. They're like, I don't know. Silicon Valley comes out. They see the ridiculousness that is living. And I use that same word. They see the ridiculousness that is a startup. They're seeing more opportunities for people trying to get them to enter tech, boot camp grads, all these crazy stories. And then they go to college because in the US, you're basically expected to do lower school, middle school, high school, college. They go to college, they study engineering, they come out as engineers. We're seeing more and more engineers graduate every year, comp sci, some sort of tech related job. They graduate. And then what year is it? 2022, 2023, 2024. Major layoffs are happening. The job market is more competitive than ever. Junior jobs are not able to get hired. No one wants to hire juniors anymore. So it's not necessarily that there is a talent shortage because everyone's like, oh yeah, there's just not enough talent. There's not enough talent. No. And especially in cybersecurity, it's just that no one wants to hire juniors. There's too many juniors.
Yeah, I think like a lot of times when we're talking about the talent shortage, it is more of the not entry level, but like actually
Skilled.
we need skilled. We need people with experience because a lot of these companies, that one of the problems is they don't want to train someone up because they're like, if I train someone, the second that they're done and you've invested all this money, they're leaving and getting a higher pay increase. Because a lot of times the pay increase from your first job, let's say like you graduated college, and in my experience, graduated college, got a pretty decent job. I was a network engineer at Cisco, right, working in tech. But my pay was very mid tier. I had friends that were going to these big 4 companies and they were getting like 6 figures. They were getting like 80, 90, 100. And this is in 2000, like I graduated in 2018. So before COVID. And so I did my time there, and mind you, I learned a ton. And then after that, though, my pay increase to the next job was like substantial. I mean, we're talking 30, 40,000 plus dollar increases for every job move. A lot of companies, bigger companies like Cisco, they have these graduate programs and things like that because they can kind of support that. Startups and companies that run so lean, they want to run so lean, they don't have the resources. And it's not that, I don't want to say it's not that they couldn't, like they have the money, they could, but they don't have the resources or don't see the value in training someone up who's eventually going to probably just leave for a higher pay. And so I think that's kind of it too. Like people don't want to take the chance on the person leaving.
It's so crazy because like when you said like what your peers were making, my peers were making like graduating college and were making like $200K. I knew people who graduated college with $500,000 as their first paycheck.
Well, let's put this in a little bit of I mean, that's crazy, but
crazy.
I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and it is the Rust Belt. There's not a lot of industry there anymore. Full disclosure, I'll say that my first job out of college, I was making around $65,000. And when my grandma found out that I was making $65,000, she like bragged to all of her friends that she thought it was crazy that I got a job right out of college and at the age of like 22 was making $65,000, which like in context to tech, like you're an engineer at a big, like a Fortune 100 company, like $65,000 is not a lot, really, especially because I had student loans. So I was like, I have to like live on my own now because I had to move to a completely different state. I had student loans. I had a lot of expenses. So in Ohio, when I'm talking about my peers, it is people that are usually coming from like these kind of industry deserts where your top job prospects, if you were to stay in Ohio, is like Sherwin-Williams. I think U.S. Bank was like a pretty big
Make 'em
one.
paint.
DeBold, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like there's not a lot, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But I think it's more, I mean, I was just saying that because I just think it's crazy that,
yeah.
22-year-olds were getting paid that much money. But also, you see a lot of people who are graduating from tech now expecting those huge paychecks. But now more than ever, companies are trying to run more and more lean. And I feel like we're seeing even entry level and senior level roles at companies that even the most hyped, like super hyped up companies are, well, I guess depends on the industry because of the hype cycles. So they have more cash to hire better talent. But like you're seeing companies that have raised good amount of money
Mhm.
and have well-standing products still offering, I don't want to say undercutting pay, but kind of, I want to say normalizing salary
Mhm.
so that it's not as drastically extreme.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just,
Another note on that, what you mentioned, because it made me think about something else, is when I see these conversations about tech layoffs, especially on places like Reddit forums, I notice there is a lot of hostility towards people who work in tech. And valid because I think there's a lot of people coming seeing from both sides of the issue is that like they see these people a lot of times how they view Silicon Valley and younger kids, which is a pretty decent sized portion of the tech industry, but it is not representative of tech jobs overall, right?
yeah. And people conflate the, like, again, the Silicon Valley of it all,
Yeah.
seeing those, like, I'm a PM and I'm doing my job in a hot tub, or like
Yeah.
everyone thinks that every tech job
It's like,
is the Google experience. You go into the office, you have 3 to 5 meals a day,
right.
you just kind of sit around and do little to no work, when in reality, outside of the Silicon Valley zeitgeist
Hmm.
is like at my company, it is technically a tech enabled company. It requires engineering and it is a focused company. We're in the IT department. We don't have any of those like luscious perks that these other companies
Go to
get.
sales.
What?
I said those perks go to sales. Like,
Yeah, like they go to sales. Like not every company is, and I feel like a lot of people are going to listen to this and be like, yeah, like I really don't. If anything, now more than ever, companies are starting to cut back on those perks because they realize that the talent pool is so big that they don't need to sell
but
engineers on this beautiful lavish lifestyle and take care of them anymore. Because and this is my same philosophy about like hiring at Google and hiring at big company, because their talent pool is so big that if you don't like their perks, if you don't like what they give you, if you fail your interview, who cares? There's another 5 people who can take your place in interview and still and be happy with what you get. So they don't really need to
right.
worry.
Yeah.
And so they can pull those perks, like they can pull all of that,
And
the lifestyles that we need, and we're seeing that reduction
mhm.
in, and I want to say we're almost seeing like the MBA-ification of it all. Like it's kind of a running joke that if when you go to like the big four consulting
Mhm.
firms and you're like, how do I save more money? They're like, take this stuff away. Stop doing this. Save more money. Cut more
Right.
people. Layoffs. Cut people. Take this away. Take this away. Like every tech company is doing this now at this point.
Mhm.
There's the basic expectations of what as an engineer you get, which is still very nice
Mhm.
compared to what other jobs get. Companies are still giving so much that we don't necessarily, what's the word I'm looking for? We're entitled to?
Yeah.
I don't want to say entitled to, but companies are still doing a lot for us as engineers and give us so many perks. But at the same time, it's like these are the base requirements. And I'll say this, I feel like a lot of people who are entering the job market now are expecting these lavish lifestyles that they saw in the late 2010s and not getting it and are kind of disappointed.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I think there's a thing happening though where again, like how like people outside of tech is like, oh, everyone in tech is a software developer. It's like, no, like not true. There's a ton of jobs in tech that are
So
not
many jobs.
developing. But also it's like, okay, so I watch this show 90 Day Fiance a lot And one of the things that always is kind of a little humorous to me is when people from another country, like this woman, I forget what country she came from, but like she went to Las Vegas and saw the Las Vegas sign and was like, oh. Like, you know, because if you look at America from just like media and you are seeing some of like the more best attractions as far, and I'm not talking like political, but kind of just like physical attractions, like
Don't meet your heroes.
yeah, so essentially, yeah, basically that. You're like, oh, this is not actually what I saw. From the
Yeah.
outside looking in, it looks great. But then once you're there, and I had that same experience going to Mount Rushmore, where I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Mount Rushmore. And then I got there and I was like, oh, wait, this looks like way smaller than it actually ever looked in pictures. And you're just like, oh, okay. And so something just doesn't live up to the expectations because I think so many people have this idea of those day in the life with me like software developer, and they're like, oh, I go in early, or I do like a Pilates class and then I like go eat lunch and then I
want to do a
code for
Pilates
2 hours,
class.
right? Yeah, I'm like, I want that. Listen, I've worked in tech for 10 years, never had a job like that. All right, so just putting that out there, that is such the minority of people.
It's like the 1% of the 1%.
Right, yeah, exactly, basically that.
We should rebel.
Well, and what I'm kind of, my original point was like, I see a lot of this hostility of like people like seeing these tech layoffs and being like, good, it's time that they
Humble them.
yeah, essentially. Okay. I'm like, I'm letting people feel the feelings because sure, I've worked in retail. I worked at Best Buy for a few years. I worked at Apple for a few years. I have been the lowest rung on the totem pole. And the more money that I have made, I would say the better quality of job that I've had. You know, because when you're making minimum wage and your manager is like, oh, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. But you're like making $8 an hour. But when I am in a salary position and I'm getting my job done, I don't have a manager over me. They're not micromanaging, but I'm having like the best quality of work while I make the most. And so people look at this disparity, which is vast. It's a huge disparity. And people are really struggling. And so it's like you see, oh, I'm working my ass off. I'm struggling to get by. And then you see someone like, oh, come day in the life of me. Like, let's do Pilates. And then put on that, like, you're like, oh, and she's making like $300,000 a year. I can see why they would feel that way.
Yeah. The animosity of it all.
Yeah. And so there is kind of resentment towards it, which I like you said, I can see where it's coming from, but it is that kind of situation where that's such a small percentage, like such a small percentage of tech jobs.
In the Eat the Rich Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
where do people who work in tech lie? Like we know first we're eating the billionaires.
Yeah.
Then we're going after the influencers. We're going like billionaires, millionaires, tech founders who sold secondaries a little too early.
Yeah.
Crypto scammers.
See, when
Influencers.
when I think of like the Eat the Rich, when I think about that, I think of it in terms of ownership. So we're talking about like Jeff Bezos, for example. He's a billionaire. Everyone knows he's a billionaire. And he owns Amazon, a majority of Amazon. And at the end of the day, like we're seeing Amazon workers, especially like that's always been kind of a topic, right? Of like, how are Amazon workers being treated? How are the drivers being treated? How are the warehouse workers being treated? Are they not allowed to take bathroom breaks when they need to, right? And they're basically producing income for this company and they're only seeing like a really, really small fraction of it while also having no ownership in the company, right?
Yeah.
And so when I think of like Eat the Rich, like sure, billionaires, by way of that, those billionaires are people who own a ton of assets. I feel like it's like, there's this subreddit called high income earners, like no, not rich yet. And it just talks about like, you know, if you make
I'm looking it up.
Let's say $200,000 a year, right? I guess that's like the new 100,000. $200,000 a year. Okay, you have a high paying job, but you have zero assets. And the problem, as we're seeing now, with having a high income job and no assets, is that you can lose that income overnight. You can lose it overnight.
Yeah, just wait until your first medical crisis. I just pulled it up. It's called Henry Finance. I kind of love the name. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to know. I'm like feral to know. What do people say in the link? The link.
Oh, all right. You want to go for the questions?
Yes, I do. I really do. I do.
So there's some interesting ones in here not related to the question that I asked, and I am unsure if it's one person submitting all of these questions or if different people are submitting these questions and which one of those is scarier. But I'll ignore that for right now. One of the interesting questions that I have related to this. Okay, so hi, what would you recommend to someone who wants to switch roles into cybersec from a Cisco collaboration background? Thank you. Getting out of collaboration is kind of difficult. Collaboration's like IP phones, usually.
I've never heard of this before.
All right. Well, let's just say like it's not just IP phones, but we'll talk about like people who are managing IP phones at like a big corporation.
Twilio?
What was that?
Twilio?
Not Twilio.
I'm just trying to make a joke.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't.
That was really funny, Allie. Yeah, I get it.
Thank you.
Okay. I would say that you basically, I don't want to say you have to start from scratch, but like collaboration, there is some overlap, but it's kind of so specific. It's hard to break out of collaboration once you're in it. And I would say like just do what everyone else has to do to get into cybersecurity and just like really familiarize yourself with cybersecurity, put yourself in those circles, go to meetups, groups, and a lot of self-study. You have to, if for getting a job in the field, even when you're switching, it can be really tricky, especially right now because of all the layoffs and all the hiring and things like that. What advice would you have for a software engineer looking to transition over to application security engineering? Maybe you can answer that.
Okay, that's like such an interesting question because I am a software engineer and people like think I work in, as I said, people think I work in cybersecurity. I feel like the first thing, and feel free to correct me, I feel like a really good thing is to do CTFs to kind of get used to the tools and kind of build a resume showing that you know how to navigate applications and web apps in that kind of way. You want to do like web app focused CTFs. My honest answer is you go to Tibbs live streams and ask Tibbs questions.
Yeah.
Genuinely. Because Tibbs has been doing AppSec for 12 years now and literally does like Q&As about getting jobs, and Tibbs is very established in the field. I mean, one of the things I think that has helped Tibbs a lot, and I think, I'm not saying copy what Tibbs did, but Tibbs created a tool that is very well respected in the AppSec community called Auto Recon. And I think that was like, that's a huge help. And I think he wrote it all in Python, but like,
yeah, just contributing to open source projects in general. There's so many projects on GitHub. If you already know how to code, you can help contribute to these projects, start your own projects. And I think that would be really beneficial.
oh my God, like what if you did your own like AppSec tests for open source projects? You don't have to submit it to the actual team that runs the open source project, but you can write your own write-up and like publish it online. Ask for feedback from AppSec people and just like start tagging your favorite people on like Twitter and just be like, hey, I wrote this write-up about AppSec, about this open source project. I would love to know what people think, if I'm right, if I'm wrong. Ask a mentor and see what they say. I think that's like a really cool idea.
Yeah. The next question that I have, which I actually think is really interesting, how has your public image helped you with your career? Do you recommend others to be media friendly like yourself? Any challenges to worry about? It is very complicated. I will say that having a media presence is very attractive to some companies and very unattractive to other companies, right? Depending on what their risk tolerance is and their social media policies. I know there's definitely companies that I probably couldn't work at because of my social media presence. And so I don't want to say that's not something I considered when I was making content and kind of like growing. My main concern has always been, my driving force is to be authentic to myself, whether it's not necessarily popular or maybe it is kind of like a little risky from like a brand perspective, and being kind of just like outspoken in issues that I believe in. And so I definitely think that there is negative that comes with it too. I've had people email my companies that I worked at, like my HR department, like demanding I be fired, trying to get me fired. That is like something that I don't want to say everyone has to deal with, but at some point it is a potential.
Yeah. I mean, so I have gotten my last 4 jobs through social media, and it is extremely helpful. But as Serena said, some companies will want to take advantage of that, and they want you to be posting about them. And that was one of the reasons I left DevRel. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm beholden to any company to like publish about them and talk about them and advertise them in the way that I just don't feel comfortable doing, because I don't want you to, it's not representative of me and what I do. But at some point, once I left DevRel, I said, no more. I don't want anybody knowing what company I work for, and I'm going to keep that private, because I don't want it to be a risk. It becomes a risk. People do try to get you fired for what you say. And I technically have 2 employers, because I also do work for Hack5, but like Hack5 is a social media company first. Like, they were first a social media company, so they understand the risks of being a personality. But I say W-2 job and like side hustle. W-2 job just straight up doesn't get that. And so I have no interest in anyone ever knowing where I work, but I do use it to help find jobs. Like, it gives you a sense of legitimacy, and people recognize and understand you and your skill. And like, when I got the job that I'm at right now, literally my manager went to me and was like, I've watched your Twitch streams before, and you're going to be fine. Like, I know you're going to get this job. It's going to be in the bag.
Yeah, it can give you some legitimacy and like a reputation. They have a lot more information to go on for the hiring process than just like cold resume and then interview, right? It's limited versus if they followed you for a while, they kind of already know your vibe.
Yeah. I know this was for the viewers, I have a hard out, but if people enjoyed this, please like, comment, subscribe, find us on social media. We're probably going to publish this everywhere we can publish this. We're going to be publishing episodes every
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Every 2 weeks is the cadence that we're going to try and lock in. But yeah, if people enjoyed this episode, we would really love the feedback. Let us know in comments or wherever you're seeing this, because I think it would be really cool to continue to do this. And obviously we're going to continue to do this regardless of what you say. Thank you so much for watching the first episode of Breaking the Internet podcast.
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for
Peace out, y'all. Bye.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.